Hello, it's Larry Clark, and here we are again with another Meet the Composer episode for Excelsior Music Publishing. And today we have composer John Pasternak, and he's going to be interviewed today by Lori Schwartz Reichl. And Lori, welcome back, and thanks for doing this again for us. And hello, John.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So Lori, take it away. Thanks for doing it.
Sure. Okay. So John, you and I are very good friends. So this is going to be a little awkward because I'm going to be speaking to you like I don't know you, but it'll be a fun time, I'm sure. So why don't
Lori,
you
I often pretend I don't know you.
Okay. Who's John? Who's Lori? All right. So tell everyone who's listening a little bit about yourself, such as where you grew up, where you currently live, what you do on a daily basis, and such, all the fun things.
Sure. I live in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. I grew up here. I'm teaching right down the road from where I grew up. So it's kind of a win-win.
So you're a true hometown boy.
Yes, I am living right where I grew up. It's great.
Okay. What is your main instrument?
Technically alto saxophone, but in college I ended up playing the clarinet more than the saxophone.
Okay. So do you do any other instruments besides alto saxophone and clarinet?
Just through teaching and methods and stuff, I do pretty much all of them. But clarinet and saxophone, I would say I have the most familiarity with.
When did you begin playing?
In fifth grade band, which would have been, oh man, I don't even remember. In the 90s, mid 90s, sometime in there.
Awesome. And where did you go to high school? So tell us a little bit about your hometown high school.
Sure. I went to Nordonia High School, which is, again, a suburb of Cleveland. I started in fifth grade. I joined just about every single musical ensemble that was available throughout my time there. In middle school, I did jazz band. I did what we called the pit orchestra for our musicals. I also did what we called pep band, which was for our sporting events, and then in addition to marching band, concert band, and wind ensemble.
Awesome. And where did you go to college for your undergraduate degree?
Kent State University. Go Flashes.
Awesome. And what were some of the ensembles that you participated in, or what were some of your responsibilities there?
So when I was at Kent State, I primarily focused on composing in my education degree, but I did do concert band, what they called university band, symphonic band, and I also did marching band. And my last year there, I was actually on the staff as staff arranger.
Fantastic. When did you know you wanted to be a band director?
So when I very first graduated from high school, I actually went to Cleveland State University, and I my major was composition. Midway through that, I kind of decided that I had started working with some community bands during that time, and I realized that working with the community bands that I really liked education, and I really liked teaching, and I decided from there to go into education, and then I transferred to Kent State University.
Great. Who are some of your most notable mentors in music education? You can go back as far as you would like.
I still keep in touch with most of my teachers from high school. Miss Mary Schrembeck was one of my mentors. I often tell her that she is the reason that she owes some people some apologies because I'm so oh no, Miss Schrembeck is the best. But she is still teaching at Nordonia Middle School. I had Mr. Hafler, Miss Levy, also very awesome band directors. And then in college, I had Dr. Gorder and Mr. Kerfman and Dr. Patricia Gutzmacher, who I know we'll talk about later, because I know it's one of your questions. But she also was very influential in my education life. Mr. Kerfman as well, but he also, I studied with a lot of composition teachers. Dr. Frank Wiley and Dr. John Lee were two of my composition teachers. They really helped mentor me as a composer where Mr. Kerfman was kind of the first teacher I had, even though he wasn't a composer, helped me start looking at it from an educational standpoint of how to use my craft as a teacher.
And I know, being friends with you, that you speak about these mentors frequently. Like, I know these names because you've spoken about them in conversation, and you always speak about them so respectfully and compassionately. And you always refer to them by their title, Mr. or Dr. or Mrs. So-and-so, which is cute.
You know, what's really funny is they yell, some of them will yell at me. Miss Schrenbeck is the number one. She goes, John, it is Mary. and I say, yes, Miss Schrenbeck.
So, Mr. Pasternak, when did you become interested in composing?
So that one goes back a little bit further. When I was a sophomore in high school, we were playing a piece by Sean O'Loughlin, and I finally got to tell Sean at Midwest this year. They were playing Insignia by him. And around the same time, my dad happened to buy me a computer program called Cakewalk. I think Music Creator or something like that, but it was like, we're talking old school music writing, but I don't think it was really meant for like, it had the ability to compose in it, but I don't think that was really its purpose as much as like make songs and like MIDI things, not so much composing. So I started doodling some music in there, and I just kind of realized that to me it was just as fun as playing a video game. And I started doodling, and I always tried to make music that sounded like Sean's Insignia from there. But I was never really I was never at that point able to come up with anything to the par of that. But it's what really kind of inspired me to get into it.
Can you put a year on it when you actually, not necessarily
2002.
2002. Okay, there's the year.
There's the year.
What was the first piece you published, and was that in 2002?
No, the very first piece I got published was Dark Matter, and that came out in 2016.
Say it again.
2016, it was Dark Matter.
Dark Matter, okay. Great. And tell the story of the piece. Was it commissioned? Why did you write it? For whom? Share some of the program notes.
It really wasn't originally called Dark Matter. I originally wrote it for the district I was at the time, and they didn't really have anything in their library that I felt was at the level I needed to teach them at. So, or not necessarily the level, but the style of what I wanted to teach, what the lesson material I was trying to teach was at the time. So what I did is I kind of created my own material, and I kind of used the craft of composing, and I ended up submitting that because I kind of felt that it was the very first kind of specific educational piece that I was writing.
How many pieces do you currently have published?
32.
Okay. And they're not all with Excelsior, correct?
That's correct.
What are some of the other companies?
Excelsior, Carl Fisher, and Robert W. Smith. And I also have some marching band charts out with Grand Mesa.
Okay. So it's contraband and marching band, or
Yep.
what other? Okay.
And this year with Larry and Excelsior, my very first string orchestra piece.
Fantastic. Have you ever done any jazz band compositions?
I have, in college I did, but I wouldn't say that my writing for that is yet quite at the level that it needs to be.
But you are a sax player, so let's get on that, John.
I enjoy playing it.
Is there a particular grade level or genre you prefer to compose?
Not really. I enjoy pretty much all of them. I think the best thing for me, or the best way I would say it is, each of them present their own challenges, and they each of them present their own sort of uniqueness to them. And I enjoy writing for all of them. I do find writing for the easier levels more challenging because there's more restrictions isn't the right word, but there's more, to me, way more thought that needs to go into it, because the easier it gets, there's way more things you have to keep into account, such as like when you're writing for 0.5, you have to think about, you can't be in sixth position for the trombone. and you have to start thinking about writing things for more condensed ranges. So it's, to me, it isn't hard, and it's not that I don't like it. It just it presents more of a challenge, if you will.
Yeah, I remember the conversation that you and I had when we went out to lunch in Ohio, and you were telling me that, and I never really thought about it like that, how a composer, for the younger grade level music, there are more limitations on it, and how it's a little bit more restricting to write. Would you say that you have more concert band selections out than anything?
Oh, most definitely, way more concert band selections. Tyler Arcari, who is the editor at Excelsior Music Publishing for band and strings, he's finally, not finally, that's the wrong way to put it. He has been mentoring me in writing for strings. So I have, what I was trying to say is I finally have my first piece for string orchestra coming out this year. So I've been working on that craft, because I'm sure, as string teachers can attest, is a whole different set of rules or guidelines than you would have for concert band. I won't explain it because I will sound like ill-informed.
What grade level is the string orchestra piece?
1.5.
Does it have a title yet?
It's Dark Frontier.
Oh, so dark. You're using the word dark.
I wanted something with frontier in it, and I couldn't really think. It's kind of it's in a minor key, and so I was like, Dark Frontier will be good.
So you and I have had this conversation a little bit, but as an author myself, I often will think of a title first, and then I'll produce my words for the content of the article. But do you do the same for your compositions, or do you do vice versa?
Each piece for me is different, because sometimes I know the subject matter going in, but I have no clue what the title is going to be. To me, subject matter is the most important. What is the story I'm trying to tell? Now, sometimes the subject matter or the story will present the title for me. There's other times that I'm just composing a piece that I've heard a rhythm or a melody for, and I have no clue what to call it. I have a few of those going on right now, as you can attest. So it really is, it depends on the piece, it depends on the subject matter.
Have you ever had an editor ask you to change it or make a suggestion, or even the person that you may be writing the piece for or who has commissioned you? Have they said, oh, could we change it to this or that? Or have you thought about this?
And before I answer that, I do want to say, and go off of what you just said, it is a suggestion. I've never been forced to change it. And there's a lot of different reasons that go into that. And they're all very valid points. Sometimes I'll come up with something and I'll be like, I'm not sold on the title. And I'm just like, it has to have a title. And, it really just depends, because sometimes it's unfortunate, but the book is judged by the cover, so it has to have something that grabs. And as I've told you, Lori, I mean, as a band director, you have to think about. Sometimes as a composer, you have to look at it and say, would I buy that? You have to look at it and really just genuinely look at what's on the cover, what's in it, and just really genuinely think, is that something myself as a band director, am I going to be able to teach from it? Is it going to grab my students' attention? Is it going to grab my attention? Because if I'm not sold, how am I going to sell 50, 60, 70 children on it?
Right. As a lover of words, the title is the first thing that pops out to me. If I like the title, or if I'm excited about it, then I go into more depth, listen to it, look at the score, and so forth. So great. Before we get into our exciting collaboration that we're going to talk about, are you currently working on any new compositions?
Well, other than the one we're going to talk about in a minute, I have a few that I'm kind of just doodling at this point. All my submissions are turned in for 21-22. I have nothing really that I'm planning on for that. All my commissions happen to be done. I've had a lot more time to work on them. So all my commissions are completed, and everything is submitted for next year. So nothing other than the piece that we're probably going to talk about here in a minute. There's nothing really, other than a few doodles that I had ideas of. There isn't really anything I'm working on.
Cool. So how about if I start by discussing what you and I have been collaborating on, and then you
please
can
do.
go with the flow. So John contacted me, 5 weeks ago, right at the beginning of quarantine, and
I
said,
have no idea.
yeah, it was right at the beginning of quarantine, and said, Lori, I have this idea of composing a brand new piece of music live and streaming it and having viewers watch and offer suggestions, collaborate on the compositional process, and would you like to moderate? And I was like, yes, I'd love to. And I could tell just from when you were discussing it with me how excited you were about this very innovative and unique idea. And it has really drawn a lot of attention, and we've been doing it twice a week now. And each time we're on there, we're seeing new people that are coming and participating. We're seeing a lot of the same people coming back and wanting to see. So go ahead and share with us what your thought was for that and how you're enjoying it.
Well, truth be told, this is an idea I've had for a long time, but I've really never, one, felt like I had the time to pull it off or dedicate to it. And two, I was kind of like, well, I don't think people would be interested in it. Like, who's going to watch it? So I kind of was like, yeah. I think it was the second week we were in quarantine in Ohio, or maybe it was the first week, and end of the first week, and I was like, I've got to do something. And so I started thinking about that, and I happened to watch a lot of gamers and stuff on YouTube do live streams, and usually I find that they're most interesting when they have, because usually one person is playing the game and they have one person moderating it to keep people engaged, because the person doing the activity needs to be paying attention to what they're doing to keep that interactive. And I thought, who do I know that would love doing that? So I asked Lori to do it. And and I'm very grateful, Lori, that you do it. And I can't, Lori is so enthusiastic and loves talking to people. And so you guys see that?
And as a moderator, it's been incredible, because my job has been to view the comments that are coming in from everyone who's watching John composing live, and then sharing those comments with John, or those questions, and then he's either answering them or making changes within the music. And I say this all the time, John, as a non-composer, watching you at work and how meticulous you are and how brilliant and passionate you are about it, and you maneuver through the software, the compositional software, so amazingly. I'm learning tricks of the trade while I'm watching you. I know everybody that's tuning in is. We have a lot of other composers that are tuning in, and feel free to share some of their names, but they're making suggestions, and they're learning from you, and we're learning from them.
It has built quite a community, and people from all over the world have been, they email me, they Facebook message me, and some people go as far as when I say we've left off, think about what you would like next, they'll actually write 30 or 40 measures and send them to me and ask what I think about them. Well, and I feel bad because a lot of them are great ideas, but we need to write them together. So
go
ahead.
And you make it very clear that you're not doing work on this composition after the streaming has shut down.
I do from time to time, but I always specify what it is, and it's tedious things like copying and pasting things that are already there, or I couldn't figure it out and I had already spent about 15 minutes on it. I'm like, let me figure this out. And then I'll say, let's listen to it. Tell me if you like it in the next stream. So I don't do anything. I'm very open about what I am and am not going to do when there is no audience there. But I don't do major things like
it's not.
I don't compose whole new sections without people there.
It's not new material. You're usually refreshing something or going back and so forth. So great. So what have you learned from that online streaming process?
Well, I really like hearing what everyone has to say, and I've always been. I kind of feel like that's what makes my music unique. When I'm composing, I generally will send my music off to friends, anyways, to get their feedback. and they'll be like, well, I like this, I don't like this. It really isn't just I liked it and I don't show it to anyone. But by the time it makes it to an editor, it usually has gone to about 5 people to get their feedback before it goes to an editor.
Right.
Excuse me. So that's something I think is, not that other people don't do that, but that's something I really pride myself on is a lot of my music has input for other people. You asked about titles earlier. My friend Brandon Nelson, who you've seen sometimes in the live streams, he is responsible for, I'd say, at least 50% of my published titles, at least, if not more. But he is so good at naming pieces of music, and he's my go-to guy.
Now, if and when we return back to some sense of normalcy out of quarantine, do you have an interest in continuing this process? Do you see it growing? What's your vision for this online streaming?
I really like this. Like, to me, this is fun. However, being a teacher in the fall during marching band season, I can't imagine during marching band season being able to continue this. However, I am fully open to continuing this when marching band is over summer vacation, when things get back to normal. Just during band camp and marching band season, I cannot imagine, because I always say I try to you got to have the work-life balance, and you got to keep in mind that this is almost like a quasi second job. Composing is not necessarily the live streaming, but you got to be able to have time to relax and unwind. I mean, especially during marching band season. I really like this, and I don't mind keeping it going. It's just, like I said, marching band. I'm willing to try it, but marching band has always got to come first, because as people who know me know, I always put my students first, and I've got to always make sure that they're taken care of.
Well, I think you hit the perfect time to do it. I also hope that those that are listening to this interview and those that have been streaming along with us over the past couple of weeks are allowing their students to listen and watch this process happen. What better way than to see a composer, live doing it? Because I say we're inside your mind, but we're watching your hands move through the software. It's so incredible. So congratulations.
Well, to go off thank you, Lori, and thank you for doing it. But to go off of what you were saying, the next, when this piece is done, which I don't know when it will be done, I probably, if I was working on it by myself, it may be close to done by now, but because we're only doing it twice a week for an hour, it isn't. But
because I keep you on track with that time.
Yeah, yes, you do. But and by the way, so if Tyler is watching this, Lori is still always right. But after this, I was thinking about doing another piece. I was thinking about doing a grade 1.5, because at the beginning of this, I put it up for a vote. And the grade 3 came in first. The grade 1.5 came in second by 1 vote. I'm willing to do another vote after this, but I think a grade 1.5. And I'm also debating whether or not to use a different program to do it. There's always Dorico. I'm also interested in maybe trying Finale. I have probably about the same comfort level between Finale and Dorico. So I'm willing to try both of them. I mean,
and just to clarify to the listeners, we are working on a grade 3 concert band piece using Sibelius.
Sibelius, yes, that's correct. And that being said, so in addition to the live streams of composing, every Wednesday I am doing a Sibelius live stream, teaching Sibelius with fellow Excelsior music composer Valerie Laney Rowe. Is joining me for that.
Just texted both of us right now doing this interview.
I'm trying my best to not look, but and then Lori, because doing these live streams is a lot, and as someone who's doing both of them, I understand. But so Tuesdays, Lori doesn't join me. I always have a guest. So far, I've had Tyler Arcari. I have had who was last? Jenny Neff. Next week is a friend of mine as a Florida band director, Katie Strock. In the future, Kevin Day is interested in joining me. And I think it's the Tuesday after this one, which is, I don't know the date. I think the first May 5th, I think it is. And then the week after that, Peter Sciano, fellow Excelsior composer, will be joining me. I've been kind of looking to make sure that that is staying diverse and making sure that we're keeping multiple different viewpoints, both teachers and composers involved in that, because I want to hear both standpoints while doing it.
Well, I look forward to hearing the final product.
Oh, I do too. So, hey, and if anyone watching, start thinking about that title.
Moving on to some other questions.
Yes, ma'am.
How often are you commissioned to compose a piece of music, or have you been?
I'd say probably about 3 or 4 a year right now, and that's been for the last 2 or 3 years. I have a few. Before all of this happened, I had about 2 lined up. I'm guessing I haven't heard about them because of the situation we're in. But this year so far, I think I've done 3. So, but the other ones that were for, I think for next year have kind of, I think been put on hold for now.
And do you frequently rehearse or perform your compositions with your school band?
Oh, yes. And in fact, what's kind of cool is I'm very fortunate. My colleagues are very supportive of my compositions. I try not to program my own things. Sometimes they will do it, and they'll be like, do you want to direct it or conduct it or teach it? And I'm like, sure, why not? On occasion, I will pull something out by me. For my kids, I've taken some of the Sousa marches, and I've made them more appropriate for my kids. I've watered them down, if you will. I've done stuff like that for them. I've constantly done arrangements for them. Actually, one of the very first things I did with my district, it was actually before I worked there, I wrote a piece called To a Place Called Hope for a band that they were doing for both their 7th and 8th grade band. And I long-term subbed for the teacher who commissioned it. So I kind of got to know them through that process. So also, my kids, not my kids directly, but the kids at my school through our orchestra, we did a film called Save My Park, which is a documentary on through a channel called Coaster Studios. I composed music for that, and our orchestra students recorded it. And we actually just spent a day. We were there. We got there around, I think it was like 8 or 9 in the morning, and we went till about 4 or 5 p.m. And we rehearsed and recorded all in that day. And then we had our school has seen that now, and they've asked if I would do a few of our school programs. And so I've done a few of our kind of school informational videos, if you will. I don't know how to describe them, but like whatever our district initiative is, we may make a video for that to kind of promote it. And I'll write the music and our kids will perform it.
That's amazing. That's great. So let's talk about some of the composers who you admire and name a few and why.
Now, I do have a rule with that when I get asked that question. Sure. I do not talk about educational composers. I do have several of them, but they're my friends, and I don't want to accidentally leave one out and offend one of them. So I do not talk about living educational composers, not because I don't. I mean, I have to be honest with you, as you can see behind me, and there's some in front of me on the floor. I own probably about 500 pieces of music to my own personal library. I buy from all composers across the spectrum. I study them. I love them. I'm a huge fan of them, but I'm not going to say who they are, and I'm not going to say who my favorites are because I don't want to offend any of them because they're my friends. So
okay, talk about non-educational composers.
So John Williams has obviously got to be one of my favorite. Mahler, Beethoven, and Shostakovich are also 2 of my favorites. Or I'm sorry, 3 of my favorites in addition to John Williams.
So dig real far deep for this next answer. You ready? Okay. Uh-oh. What do you feel are your strengths as a composer? Your greatest strengths?
So, as we talked about a couple minutes ago, I'm really passionate about film, And I feel that it's one of my strengths is being able to bring that passion to my music for kids to have access to that style across all grade levels, so that a middle school kid can feel like they're playing music for a film. So, kids, a student's first band piece can also feel like it's for a film. So I try to make sure that that sort of goal is always achieved in my music. And as you've heard on my live streams, if I don't think I can buy it, then I'm not going to give it to someone, because if I don't buy it, I'm fairly certain a lot of other people are not going to buy it. And what I mean by buy it isn't necessarily the pieces. They're sold on the theme, or they're sold on the concept I'm presenting.
What about your limitations? Could you narrow it down to one or two? And what are you doing to try to enhance them and improve upon those?
So limitations, I will say I do have them. I'm not going to try to pretend I don't.
We all do.
Yes. And I will say this about going off of, I will try to think of some specific examples. But whenever I do find a challenge or a roadblock, you are right. I do always try to find help. I'm also of the philosophy that I am a human and I am always a learner. I will always be learning throughout my entire life. So I always look for my colleagues, composers, if I'm in that. As a teacher, I will look to my colleagues to learn from them. I have never, ever, ever felt that I am the expert, and I've never, ever felt that I am the maybe not the expert is the way to say it, but the leader in the field, if you will. I've always felt that I have room to grow, and that's always been my philosophy is, to me, I never reach the bar of there. When I get there, the bar moves up, and I always push myself to do more. As far as specific examples, sometimes I do struggle with the easier grade levels, as I was saying earlier. But it's not that I don't enjoy it, and it's not that I can't do it. It maybe take me longer to accomplish it.
So we're coming down to our final 4 questions, okay?
Lori, I thought of another one. Sorry. String orchestra. I'm working on string orchestra, and I'm working with string orchestra composers to accomplish it.
Awesome. So our final 4 questions of the interview. What advice would you give to students who have an interest in composing? So there's something maybe that you wish you would have done earlier, or it worked for you and you want to pass on that suggestion to students?
So I have people, adults that are also starting to get into composing that ask me this as well. The first thing I do is I recommend that you go to, it depends if this is also the median of which you're trying to get in. If you're looking to be published, I always say go to the publisher's website, download PDFs of the score, go on YouTube and watch and see what people are doing. If you have a specific style you like, then maybe that's the publisher you should submit to, because that's obviously where your voice is going to be fit in. That's what I did. I went and listened to hear where my voice fit in, and I submitted to those publishers. Number 2, some of them put their guidelines on their website. Download them, study them. Again, look at how the what's on YouTube or in the scores follows those guidelines or does not follow those guidelines. Look where, and again, they're guidelines, and the editors will tell you that. They are guidelines. They are not set in stone. The other thing I remember, when, both Robert and Larry, when Larry first started publishing me, they both told me right up front, either you're going to listen to our suggestions and we'll get you published, or you're not, and we're going to have to respectfully part ways. And it's the truth. And to me, it has greatly benefited my music, because you have to look at it as you're almost in a composition lesson at that point. And to me, again, that goes back to my philosophy we were just talking about a minute ago. I'm always willing to grow and get better, because I've never reached that. I'm always constantly trying to reach it. And when they give me a suggestion, it's helping me get to the bar, but again, I'm never at the bar. So, I mean, I'm in year 5 or 6 of getting music published. I've submitted music now, and I guarantee that there's going to be feedback and suggestions for every single one of them, if they are selected. I think I submitted 8 or 9 pieces with the full expectation that some of them are not going to be accepted. And that's, you can't take that offensively. You can't be hurt by it. My first pieces, Dark Matter, got picked up, but it was actually supposed to come out with another piece that still isn't published. When I submitted things to Larry to begin with, I think I submitted 2 or 3 things to him. Both of them were rejected, but he wrote me this very nice letter of what I was doing right and what I can do better next time. So that's part of the process. Sorry, Lori, I think I kind of went on a bit of a tangent there. I'm sorry.
I'm loving listening to you. What would your dream commission be, or composition? Is there a particular organization or ensemble that you would love to write for?
I'd really like to write for one of the military bands. I think that would be so much fun and so cool. I happen to know a few people in the President's Own, which is so weird and surreal and humbling to me. One of my, I know I mentioned Ms. Schrembeck was my middle school band director, but before her, Mr. Prather, who is, I can't remember his exact title on the President's Own, but he is now with the President's Own, which was kind of my first connection. And one of the former band directors from where I teach, and again, I'm so sorry, I don't know his rank and title off the top of my head, but is one of the assistant conductors of the President's Own, Ryan Allen. So to me, that would be so cool and humbling.
It's amazing because I live outside of Baltimore and Washington, D.C., and the amount of musicians that I know that are in some of those ensembles, or I've taught their children, or know some of the conductors or retired conductors. It's pretty cool when you know them and you can see them. So your time will come, Mr. Pasternak. It'll be soon.
I'm hoping. We'll knock on wood.
And our last 2, and we talked about this a little bit, but do you have any upcoming world premieres? I know things have sort of been halted a little bit in the quarantine, or projects or collaborations that you'd like to share. We spoke about the live streaming event and some other creations of yours, but anything else we didn't discuss that you'd like to talk about?
I did just recently do a project I revised an old project for Kent State University. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about what the project was yet, so I won't. But that will hopefully be released soon. And I think that's it. There's a few pieces that were supposed to be premiered that I wrote, but don't really know what's going on with them.
Right. Nobody does. So.
Yeah.
And finally, John, what is the best way for educators to contact you and or students? And are you open to students contacting you?
I prefer directors contact me. And if a student has a question, ask your director to ask me. But you're more than welcome to, students, I encourage you to ask your directors to answer me, to ask questions of me. I'm more than happy to do that. I've had a few directors reach out to me. You can go to my website, johnpasternak.com. My email is there, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube channel, which I never thought I would be promoting. But it's all there. Students, if you have a question, ask your band director to ask me, and I'll be more than happy to answer it.
Great. So they can access your website, johnpasternak.com, correct?
Yep.
Great.
Which a new version will be coming out here soon once the new pieces of music for this year are released. I'm waiting for the website is done. I just need the links to put where they belong.
I hope you put your high school graduation picture up there, John. That was a good one.
Looked slightly smaller then.
Oh, well, this has been delightful. As your friend, I admire you so much as a composer and an educator, and I hope that those listening have really enjoyed listening to you. So,
let me plug Lori here. Make sure you check out her website, Making Key Changes. Lori is constantly, every day, putting out new blogs, new education ideas, especially during this quarantine. Make sure you check it out.
Oh, thanks, John.
Anything for you, Lori.
This was just like a party. It was a lot of fun.
I know.
Larry, you should have joined us.
Well, maybe.
Can you have some confetti going on?
Well, people are doing Zoom happy hour, so why not? Composer. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for doing this for us, and hopefully students everywhere will get something out of this, and directors as well. And take care, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.